Okay, we are live.
Well, good evening. Welcome to nctc's Impact of Alcohol panel discussion. First of all, thank you to Elizabeth Abu for setting this up for us, for our students, and for those of you viewing Facebook Live. September is Alcohol Awareness Month, and we appreciate each one of you taking the time to join us on the panel, and for those of you that are viewing Facebook Live. During our time together tonight, we're going to be sharing stories, we're going to be sharing experiences, information, and resources on the impact of alcohol. I am Sharice Bewley. I will be your moderator this evening. I am a counselor for North Central Texas College, and I primarily work on the Graham campus, but I wear a lot of hats, and I assist on all the other campuses as well. Before I introduce our guest panelists and have them introduce themselves, I would personally like to introduce our very own Dr. Roxanne Del Rio and have you introduce yourself. And would you please educate us on what is Alcohol Awareness Month and why is this so very important?
Dr. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharice. I'm Roxanne Del Rio, and I'm Dean of Students for North Central Texas College, and I'm happy to be here. Alcohol Awareness Month is a public health program organized by the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependency in a way of increasing outreach and education regarding the dangers of alcoholism and issues related to alcohol. The program was started in 1987 with the intent of targeting college-age students who may experience alcohol as part of their newfound freedom. They often underestimate the amount they drink, the duration of their drinking problem, the impact it had on their life, and or overestimate their ability to control their drinking or even to quit. At NCTC, one of our purposes of our Alcohol Awareness Month is to point out the stigma that still surrounds alcoholism, substance abuse, and for many, denial is a common trait among those struggling with alcoholism or alcohol abuse. Programs such as the Alcohol Awareness Month that we have on our campus and other campuses exist to ensure that families and communities have the information on resources and options available to them to control the crisis of alcoholism. And at the end of the panel, we will discuss those resources for our faculty, students, family, and our community live with us. I want to thank the counseling office and the awareness team at NCTC for their dedication in putting this month's activities together. I also want to thank you panelists for being here with us this evening. And our viewers, we hope you find this panel discussion beneficial. Sharice?
Thank you for sharing those facts with us, Dr. Del Rio, and thank you for all you do. We know that you play a vital role in getting information like this out to our students and for those that they may know or loved ones or that need it. Next, I would like to introduce Calvin Richard, Officer Calvin Richard. Would you mind giving us a little bit of the legal ramifications of how the impact of alcohol affects us in that way, such as DWI, the MIPs, things like that?
Okay, this will take just a few minutes, but thank you very much, and good evening panel and good evening Lions. Here are some legal ramifications of underage drinking, possession, consumption of alcohol, driving while intoxicated, etc. Boils down to a lot of money and a lot of paperwork to get your driver's license back, even if the offense didn't involve driving. Now, this is kind of detailed, so I'm going to kind of read it to you, but please understand what I'm reading is just for DWI, not for other offense enhancements such as kids in cars, intoxication assault, or intoxication manslaughter. DWI for minors. If you were under 21 years of age at the time of the violation or convicted of DWI, you will receive a 1-year driver's license suspension. Subsequent alcohol-related offenses may result in an 18-month suspension. Prior to the renewal or issuance of your driver's license, you must complete each of the following: And every time I bring up one of these things, you can kind of ring the cash register. Serve the required suspension period. 2, obtain a financial responsibility insurance certificate, better known as SR22, from an authorized insurance company. And SR22 must be maintained for 2 years from the date of conviction. Pay a $100 reinstatement fee, in addition to paying any other outstanding fees. A minor may receive a 90-day driver's license suspension if the convicting court orders community supervision that requires the installation of an ignition interlock device. You will be required to apply for an interlock restricted driver's license to be eligible to drive. The convicting court may also require the completion of a 12-hour class in an authorized alcohol education program. Failure to complete this class will result in an additional 180-day suspension and a $100 reinstatement fee. Other alcohol offenses committed by minors. Minors who are convicted of any of the following offenses will receive a 30-day suspension for the first offense, a 60-day suspension for the second offense, and a 180-day suspension for the third offense. 1, purchase of alcohol. 2, attempt to purchase alcohol. 3, consumption of alcohol. 4, possession of alcohol. 5, misrepresentation of age. And 6, public intoxication. Driving while intoxicated, DWI for adults. If you are 21 years of age or older at the time of the violation and convicted of driving while intoxicated, a court may require one or all of the following. 1, attend an alcohol education program. This can include a 12-hour DWI intervention program or a 32-hour DWI repeat offender program. Serve a driver's license suspension for a period not to exceed 2 years and pay a $100 reinstatement fee, in addition to paying any other outstanding fees. Obtain a financial responsibility insurance certificate, SR22, from an authorized insurance company. And SR22 must be maintained for 2 years from the date of conviction. 4, serve probation. If granted probation, you will be required to complete a 12-hour class in an authorized alcohol education program unless the requirement is waived by the presiding judge. B, evidence of completion of the appropriate alcohol education program must be submitted to the department within 180 days from date of conviction, or the driver's license will be revoked. A reinstatement fee will be required if the driver's license is revoked. 5, install an ignition interlock device in your vehicle as a condition of driving. You will be required to apply for an interlock restricted driver's license to be eligible to drive. B, if your driving privileges is suspended, in addition to the interlock requirement, you may be eligible to apply for an occupational driver's license. DWI for commercial driver's licenses. If you hold a commercial driver's license and are convicted of DWI, your commercial driver's license will be disqualified. By statute, a conviction for DWI under Texas law carries a series of maximum penalties. These penalties increase with each prior DWI conviction. A first offense is a Class B misdemeanor. A conviction carries a maximum fine of $2,000 as well as a jail sentence of up to 180 days. Second offense is a Class A misdemeanor. License suspension or revocation for 180 days to up to 2 years, up to a $4,000 fine, and from 30 days to 1 year in jail. Third offense is a third-degree felony. License revocation up to 2 years, up to a $10,000 fine, and anywhere from 2 to 10 years in prison. There's one last thing I have for y'all, and that's if an alcohol violation on a college campus, if it occurs on a college campus, not only can the offender be taken to jail, but the offender will also have a visit with our wonderful dean of students. It is not double jeopardy. One action is through the courts, the other is administrative through the college. And with that, I turn it back over to the panel.
Thank you so much, Officer Richard. We appreciate you giving us that information. Those laws are clearly set in place to try to prevent accidents and things from happening and to save lives. So as harsh as they may sound, there's a good reason why they're there. And by putting them there, if we save one person, we've done our job. Now, let's move to our panelist guest. And first, I want to have each one of you introduce yourselves. Welcome, Rex. May we begin with you?
This one, actually, my sobriety date's May 25th, 1995. I'll be sober 25 years and 4 months tomorrow.
Congratulations. That's an awesome accomplishment. Sabrina, may we introduce you?
Yes, my name is Sabrina Parker. My sobriety date is November 21st of 96.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Dr. Bellows, please introduce yourself.
Lisa Bellows, I chair the Division of Science and Agriculture at North Central Texas College. My dad was an alcoholic. My brother's an alcoholic. My sister-in-law is an alcoholic. So there's been a lot of alcoholism in my family. And so I'm just delighted to be able to share some experience in our family, from our family that might aid someone else in avoiding some of the pitfalls that alcohol and drugs can bring to a life.
Thank you, Dr. Bellows. Lindsay, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah, I'm Lindsay Rail, and I'm from Grace Counseling Center. I grew up with my dad is in recovery, so I went to my first AA meeting at 2, and my mom is an LPC, and she specializes in substance use. And my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia when I was 9, and also has dual diagnosis substance use. So I grew up in a home, getting to experience a lot of different things, and now I run a treatment facility for dual diagnosis clients. So we treat substance use disorder and then severe and chronic.
Thank you, Lindsay. We appreciate all of you so much for being here tonight. It takes a lot of courage for you to come and discuss topics like this, and how the impact of alcohol not only can affect yourself, but those that you love, those you know, and those that you're trying to help, Lindsay. Just a fraction of my story. My father was an alcoholic, and so was my husband's father. And both of them struggled most of their life with alcohol. They both lost their marriages. They lost jobs along the way. They had to deal with the consequences, some legal, from their drinking. And for them, it's been a lifelong adult battle, one that neither one of them is very proud of. So alcohol, it not only affects and impacts the person, but definitely those around them, the families, the loved one, and friends. Most of us know someone, whether it be personal or from afar, that struggles with alcohol or has in the past. And, you know, most of us may know someone as part of those statistics that were mentioned before. But thank you for listening to just a fraction of my story. And now what we'd like to do is ask each one of you panel members to share your experience and your story with us, how alcohol has impacted you, those you love, or those you've helped. Rex, will you please share your stories and your experiences with us?
I don't know where to start here. My sobriety date's May 25th, 1995. My dad was alcoholic and was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous 6 years ago. And I went in the back door to Anchor Group in Gainesville, Texas, and fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, but I was not one of y'all. And through the years, I drank and I caught up with all the rest of the drunks in my home groups in Gainesville, Texas. And
When did you start drinking?
I started drinking when I was 13 years old. And and that's that. I didn't binge. I like to drink. period. And I went into counseling when I was 17 years old in Wichita Falls, Texas, and the first time I had ever heard anything about alcoholism was I went in there one Thursday morning. And my counselor asked me what was the matter with me, and I said, I got a damn hangover. And he said, well, what's going on with alcohol? And I said, well, we got a $1 all the beer you can drink night in Lindsay, Texas. And he said, let's look at that. And I said, I don't want to look at that. I said, all I want to do is go back next Wednesday. Yeah. He said, the next meeting I had with him, he said, well, how many beers did we drink? And I said, 17. And I said, that's all I could get in me before they closed the door. And he said, Rex, we may have some alcoholism going on. And that sent a chill up my spine. 17 years old. And I knew right then I was alcoholic. And I finally ended up May 25th, 1995 in Ardmore, Oklahoma, in drug and alcohol treatment. And saved my life and actually found God and sobriety. And then we can go on and on. That's kind of that's how I started and where my success started. And I appreciate y'all for letting me be.
Rex, we thank you very much for sharing that experience and your story with us. And we congratulate you on where you are today, and we wish you all the success. Sabrina, would you like to share maybe some of your experience and how alcohol has impacted you, please?
Sure. I started drinking about 13. We were teenagers, and we got together at one of our friends' house and just filled like a 7-Eleven cup, the big one. We just poured like all rum, brandy, vodka, all of them in this big drink. And then we all started drinking. And it was kind of like, I loved how it made me feel. And, but of course, you can't use all that combination without getting sick. So we were all getting sick when our parents came to pick us up. And my father went, and he said, you feel good? I said, not really. He said, well, that's what happens when you do what you did. And I said, okay. So, you hang out with the kids, you sneak out, you drink, that kind of stuff. It's not heavy duty until you get it in your life, like where you're able to, you're old enough to get it. That was always the hard part when you're young. But well, I'm not there yet. So I had been married, and I did not drink the whole time we were married because he was the alcoholic, and I was trying to make sure everything would be okay. But when we divorced, that's when my experiences really got out of hand. And actually, the thing that led me to AA was I was in graduate school getting a master's degree in counseling, and I had been in a facility twice in one semester, but I still had an A. I kept that A somehow. But at the end of the semester, I had one class left. And one day, my mentor called me in his office and he said, your committee has decided that you're going to have to, we're going to not let you come back and finish this last class until you get a year sobriety. Oh, I was so mad. I just ripped all the way screaming down the hall, because I just didn't understand what the problem was. I was doing my work and getting good grades, but that was a major thing for me because that was really, really important for me. And but I did. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. I
Met me.
Yes, I met you. But I was fortunate, very, very fortunate that I was able early on to get a wonderful sponsor. And she had passed away about a year ago, and she'd been with me the whole time. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anyone to guide me through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps, the action you need to take. And, although there's a question on here about does a person need to hit rock bottom? And I do want to say that our experiences were different. He did hit a very different rock bottom than I did. They call it like a low bottom drunk or a high bottom drunk. So my time at being actively using and drinking was not that long because I was fortunate to get kicked out of my master's program. But I did go to AA. I did do the steps. I did everything they told me to do. I went back a year later, and they let me come back and do the rest of the program, and I was able to get my master's degree. And early on, Rex and I met, we fell in love, and been together for 22 years. So the program really worked.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you. It takes courage to come and speak about your experiences and how the impact of alcohol has affected you. We certainly appreciate it. Dr. Bellows, would you share your experiences and your story?
Well, I grew up with an alcoholic father, and we did. And then I saw a brother that I loved very much. I saw his life take some real awkward turns, some unfortunate turns because of alcoholism and drug abuse, failed relationships, poor parenting. I saw a lot of things like that happened in my family. I am fortunate enough to not be an alcoholic. I wouldn't say I don't have an addictive personality, but I'm not an alcoholic. And so, that's kind of it's relation. I'm one of the relationships of alcoholics. So that's my story.
Yes, well, that's a very important part of the story as well, because, as we learned before, it does not only affect and impact the person with the problem, it affects those around them. We appreciate you coming forward and telling us about your story. Lindsay, would you share your experience with alcohol and kind of what you do, please?
Yeah, my whole life, and my whole life is substance use disorder. My dad, my dad is a professional pharmacist who lost his license because he was abusing alcohol and prescription drugs. Like I said earlier, my brother has schizophrenia. He's also an alcoholic and a drug addict, and I have Grace Counseling, which we focus on substance use treatment. So we're able to really help some people, and I learn something new every year. It's all about accountability and really, being that for those people, because addicts, they don't change unless they have a real reason to change. So you got to figure out the why and do that. And my son, his father is also an addict who's still actively using. So it's like everyone in my life, I just kind of gravitate towards those people. So, I came into this because I'm heavily impacted, obviously, by all of the relationships that I have that are affected by addiction. I just literally another one of my friends died yesterday of overdose, because COVID is really taken a toll
Yes.
on this population. And so, yeah, I got out of high school and I had, more than I could count on my hands full of friends dying from overdose and drug related suicide, because we got a little freedom after high school.
Mhm.
So I think, I've been pretty heavily impacted because I have people die every year.
Mm.
It's people my age are not getting a lot of help.
Mhm.
So early on.
Yes. Well, that's one reason why we're having this tonight. We're going to provide that information and resources for students to be able, students and viewers to be able to access and change their lives. And thank you for your service with your counseling. We appreciate that. Thank you again, everyone, for sharing your stories and for putting it out there. The main thing to do is to get it out there, to talk about it. And it can be very, very difficult. But if you get it out there and you get your story out there and you reach one person, then we've made a difference. And if that one person can reach one person and it could just go on, then look at the lives that we can change and we can help. So again, thank you so much. At this time, what I want to do, we're going to continue your stories and your information, but we're going to get into some questions, and that way you'll be able to continue it and answer some questions. Lindsay, the first few will be for you. People use substances like alcohol for lots of different reasons. I know sometimes they do it to increase pleasure. Sometimes they do it to decrease distress, decrease, the negative feelings. And just because a person is using alcohol does not actually mean that they have a substance abuse problem. What is alcohol abuse versus alcoholism or being dependent on alcohol? What's the difference?
Yeah, I think that is a very good question because it's very confusing, especially with the DSM-5 and how it defines it, because technically all of my friends have substance use disorder in remission based on their early 20s experiences, because you just have to meet those criteria and then you're a lifelong substance use disorder person, correct? But we get a lot of people at the facility, especially with opiates, who are abusing the drug or they're dependent on the drug, but they're not an addict because they have been prescribed something, they get physically dependent on it, or they're using it to cope. But the difference that I've seen is that somebody that's dependent or that's just abusing the drug doesn't continue using when there are ramifications. So a lot of things, because I do utilization review, so I have to prove that there's a reason for treatment for people who come to my facility, and things that we're looking for are a pattern. So like there are some people that will always relapse. They have the same characteristics leading up to a relapse, so they're always lying, they're always, they stop attending meetings, they stop showing up to their family functions and stuff, and this always leads up to a relapse. So patterns up to relapse. Functional impairment, so is it, or have they lost a job, have they lost a relationship, are they discontinuing friendships, are they having conflict with family members or isolating themselves? And then family history is a big one, because as we all know, substance use disorder is genetic, and that's now proven by research. So those are some things, especially in the adolescents, because it's really hard to prove that there's actually an addiction issue when they're that young, because their frontal lobes aren't developed, and they can exhibit a lot of the same symptoms at that age and actually grow out of it. Those are some of the red flags that we look for to actually identify someone who's suffering from addiction versus the other.
Thank you for that clarification. I know that that's been a question that I've heard several times myself, and we appreciate the clarification. Lindsay, would you say that alcoholism is a disease? And I know that you said genetic. Is it inherited? Is there a predisposition to it? Is it gender specific, age specific? Are there social factors? Is one person more likely to develop the dependency or a population than another?
I mean, it comes in all shapes and sizes, all packages. I mean, at my facility particularly, we treat people you'd never expect. I mean, I have surgeons who were drunk doing cardiac surgery on people while they were completely blacked out, intoxicated. I treat pilots, I treat nurses, I treat people who are basically homeless. I treat, a wide range. So I wouldn't say it discriminates. It is a chronic relapsing brain disorder. There's no cure for it. So much like diabetes or hypertension or other chronic diseases, it's got to be treated throughout life. It's not something that we can treat, that we can cure. But there's a lot of evidence that indicates that alcoholism and addiction as a whole is a complex genetic disease. So they actually have variations in a large number of genes affecting risk, but some of these genes have been actually identified. So 2 genes in particular for alcoholism are ADH1B and ALDH2. And they're the ones that have the strongest known effect on the risk for alcoholism. So you can they're actually working on some stuff, and it's like way down the line, but they're working on the ability to identify that gene when someone is still pregnant with a baby and be able to modify that before the child's even born, which is insane. But they're also looking at that stuff for things like schizophrenia and other things that that people are genetically predisposed to. So pretty interesting.
Thank you. I know you touched base on some, some signs that someone may have a problem. Are there some early signs that we could be aware of? Some super early signs.
I think it's hard. I mean, really early, like when they first start using, that's hard to determine. But somebody who needs alcohol or substances to be able to do things. So like I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I was just using it to be social," or "I was just using it to, to go out and do X, Y, and Z." Exhibiting signs of irritability, extreme mood swings, temporary blackouts or lapses in memory, because a lot of times when people get into it, they're starting to drink an amount that's abnormal. I've heard a lot of alcoholics have really high tolerances. So a lot of my alcoholic friends can drink obscene amounts very early on. Like when they first start drinking, their tolerance is just naturally high. Also lying is a big, my mom says we don't call them liars, but they're not very accurate historians. So in isolation and people who are drinking alone at home, that's a big indicator too, because usually most people that are normal drinkers, they use it as a social thing. But if someone's isolating and just drinking by themselves, that's a big one.
Sure. And also, why do some people say, well, I'm not really an alcoholic, I'm just a functioning alcoholic? What is a functioning alcoholic? Is there such a thing as a functioning alcoholic?
I mean, I've seen alcoholics that can keep a job and keep some relationships for a while, but I think that always ultimately, I think it's funny because people say I'm a functional alcoholic, but they say it to me while they're in treatment. So I'm like, if you were really that functional, how'd you end up in treatment? Because most people don't just say like, oh, I'm here for my vacation in treatment. You're there for a reason. So if you were really into all that functional, how'd you get here, and why'd you call me? But I think that that's usually part of the delusion, because addiction in general is a very delusional disease. And so people are thinking they're more functional than they are, just like they think their kids don't know that it's happening when they do. I think it's more so just delusion.
Dr. Bellows, Rex, Sabrina, would you like to add anything to what we've just discussed, those previous questions?
I think that Lindsay was just right on the spot about most of the alcoholics that we have known
Mhm.
that have, especially some of those that had some long-term sobriety, but then went back out, or what kind of happened would be like we were all really close friends, and then it just kind of the friendship kind of faded. And we're doing the deal. We're going. We're helping people, and we wonder why did they go away? And you kind of think, um, just because we're so self-conscious, is it us? Did we do something? And then I'm talking about a current situation we're in, and then we get a call
Last Friday.
and find out, well, he's a rehab again, and you're like, it didn't have to happen, and I was like, we didn't go away, y'all did, we're here, and it's kind of that I just felt like needed to be said, and my sister is a recovering drug addict, and the same thing, I didn't go away. I've been here. It's really hard because you never know what's going to happen next.
It's like Lindsay said, when they quit calling or quit going to functions and quit showing up to, that's usually the ones that they call us back there, and they're either drug rehab or dead. That's, it's that black and white. Got a phone call last Friday afternoon, right here in Gainesville, Texas, and a dear friend of mine he was in rehab, opioids, and he gets out next Thursday, and he called. I've talked to him 6 or 7 times this last Friday. We got to find a spot for him when he gets home Friday or Thursday. And our meetings have gone away. COVID has killed those. But, we had a little home group there for in Texas. And they've had 3 little groups tell that group together at the hospital in Henrietta. One of them died, and one of them went out, and one of them quit. So we have no meeting whatever. Lindsay knows what I'm talking about. These are little home groups, and you can't get to them. You can't even get into Henrietta Hospital. This guy's coming home to Bellevue, and he's going to be right here. And I feel like I'm responsible for him. But it's been that's the gift I get. I get to say one more day in gratitude. Actually, I felt bad. So, geared up. Such a gift to be with you.
I'm curious about that. What do you know that are starting a pattern?
Our dad would, if something happened, financial or relationship wise, my mom or something, he was a binge drinker. So he'd go 6 months, a year, 2 years and not drink. He would just drink till he couldn't walk, for days. And so you sort of, even as a child, you sort of feel that in the air. I sort of feel right now that fall is in the air, the temperatures kind of get cooler at night. You sort of feel that was coming on. And then he would drink. Rex and I always had a close relationship. And I would always know that if I didn't hear from him for a day or two, that he was drinking or on drugs or doing something he shouldn't be doing. So, you know, there were those telltale signs, and when you're, you know, a family member, oftentimes you can just sense that. And so, yeah.
And continuing with you, how do you think the effects of alcohol, such as binge drinking, blurred vision, embarrassment about an episode that maybe you're not proud of what you did while you were drinking, memory loss, the shakes, things like that, how does that impact a person in their lives, like their family, their life, their friends, or harming yourself physically?
All of this, uh, it started early. You know, I heard feeling here, a bad mouth there, and drink out there to become the bad mouth. But that, I don't have to go around apologizing. That's one of the gifts of sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
But I binged. I drank the damn time I got shot. And then I got on the meth and put no, well, I got on the amphetamines. My love, my life, and all the cattle. I could do all the dope and all the whiskey there was out there and make it. That's kind of work. That's when that was kind of my goal. And I reached that goal and then ended up drug rehab, kind of like Lindsay said there, well, go. You don't end up drug rehab on a real good deal. I ended up sleeping on plastic sheets, messing my pants, and my functionality was gone. You know? Yeah, hallucination. I did a lot of that. You know?
When you were coming off.
Yep.
Dr. Fellows, from the viewpoint of a family member, even, you know, children, adult children, friends, how could you expand a little bit more about how alcohol can impact family members?
Well,
Yeah.
are you asking me?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Bellows.
You know, finances were always an issue that seemed to spark binges of alcohol. Sorry, folks.
Oops.
Are we still alive?
Yeah, we're still live.
We see you.
Sorry about that.
All right.
We got a cat that wants to talk.
Yeah. So,
Back.
yeah, but what I was saying is you know, our mom was it's fine. It's just nice. Our mom was a school teacher, and our dad was a farmer, and rancher, and a rodeo guy. And when finances got bad, you know, that's when he would drink. My Rex would. My husband and I have a convenience store here in Gainesville, and you know, he would come by and sell a good story to my husband and write him a hot check. You know, I mean, it was
Lisa wasn't around.
yeah. When I went around, he'd go see my husband and cash a check. But it was, you know, I never suffered from the embarrassment like my mother did.
Mm-hmm.
Our mother was always very embarrassed. She would tell me, you know, don't tell your grandmother, you know, my dad's mother, don't let her know. Well, I'm sure she knew, but she was incredibly embarrassed. I didn't experience the embarrassment. I was angry, and I was ready to rip their heads off. And what, you know, so I experienced more of an anger toward their alcoholism and a lack of understanding, because you know, I don't have to drink, and I don't have to do drugs. So why should you have to feel like you have to do that? You know, so mine was more of an anger than it was embarrassment. Our mother was very much embarrassed, and our sister, I think, was more of an avoidance person, and our grandmother was a concealment person. You know, it just didn't exist. And she had brothers that were alcoholics. Our dad's mom. It seems to be on the male side in our family. And so I think she just ignored that it was there. So, you know, everybody in the family deals with it very differently. You know, you can lash out, you know, join in or whatever. But those are just kind of our relationship as, you know, alcoholism in our family.
Sure. And we hear that in lots of families and similar stories. Rex and Dr. Bellows, you talked about, you know, the changes of the season, like around the fall that you said earlier. You said, oh, I knew this was coming, which kind of leads me into talking about triggers. What are triggers, and why is it important for someone with a substance abuse issue or alcoholism? Why do you need to know your triggers, and how can that impact you?
Sharice, we have a question. After that, we'll go to the chat.
Sure.
So yes,
Yes.
go ahead and answer.
Okay.
We'll wait and see.
Okay, my triggers were started early as awards or rewards. I've done this, so I need to drink. And then, of course, you add on to those is your alcoholism, your drug addiction progresses, and my triggers today or I have to keep I mean, it's a lot, but these are life skills that go along with that we've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous and going to counselors like me. You know, those triggers are, I am totally exhausted tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I've been up at 3 o'clock this morning. Got Lisa put me to bed at 4 this afternoon to take a nap. And so I could get here, and then I got up at 3 o'clock yesterday morning and stayed in the dark last night. And I know that I'm past the point, but we signed up to help to suit up Joe up, and we're worried about these alcoholics and these, you know, Lindsay, you know, they're going away. There's no rehab center out there, and we got thousands of people out here that need them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no funding, there's no help, and there's actually not anybody. That's kind of about the subject there, but my triggers got help was just about it. I remember one time in 1980, we'd bought a sale barn up in Oklahoma, and I was hitting about a half a gallon a day, and I had quit for 24 hours, and I went for Friday afternoon, and I was walking down the hall of that sale barn, and I thought, how you need help, can I stay sober? And that's the first time. Well, I was 40. Well, I was 40 something years old, but that was the first time that thought had ever just consciously come to me. How can I not drink?
Mm-hmm.
And I went right from there straight and got a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's when that realization I got your alcoholic.
Yeah. So it's very important to know your triggers, and maybe you can try to work on avoiding those as much as possible, or at least knowing them and knowing, you know, this is a trigger that I have, and how can I distance myself from that specific trigger, or what can I do to prevent that from becoming an episode. We did have a question. It says, I know that you want to be there for your friends and family, but how far does one help before you're considered enabling? And that was a future question about what is an enabler. Do I have someone that would like to answer that?
I will. I'm still Rex.
Okay, Rex, thank you.
Her mom was an enabler.
Yeah.
I mean, to the nth degree. Our mother was the greatest enabler ever. She never did anything wrong.
Mm.
But I mean, you know, she would for everything that he did. You know, he had an accident in high school that nearly took his life. So that was always an excuse, which it may have been a contributor, but it's not. It doesn't mean that you become a jerk in life, addicted, all those other things. So excuses for him, made excuses for our dad. She was the best enabler I've ever even, I mean, you look it up in the dictionary and there's her, you know, saintly soul there. But made excuses.
My daddy was.
Oh, yeah. They would go behind him if he wrote a hot check, and they really didn't have the money, but they would pay off his hot check to keep him from having to have any of the consequences of his actions and behavior, instead of letting him experience the adult consequences of his actions.
And when the week I went to rehab, my school picked me up and we picked up $1,156 worth of hot checks in Cook County, Texas. My mother, she was driving a big old blue car, and I was with her, and all I was wanting was to get that cash out of my mother's hands, that $1,200, instead of paying them hot checks off and escape one more time. And Mom stayed with me all day long. When we got on, we had picked up $1,156 worth of hot checks here in Cook County, right here in Gable, Texas. And that was my dear loved one, good friends, and my brother-in-law, and my crack dealer, you name it, they all had a check on register. And mother said, I don't want, said, if you go to rehab, you'll be worried about those hot checks. You might not stay sober. And enough's enough. Get your ass up there and die or get oil. And that's kind of the way I sponsor some people. I'm the real deal, and we can make the real deal out of you, but you got to help us.
Right. Dr. Bellows, you had mentioned, you said your mother was an enabler. The next question is to you, and it can sort of fall along those lines as well. If a person receives an intervention and they get help for an alcohol problem, do family members need counseling too, and why? And then Lindsay, you can follow up with that if you'd like. Dr. Bellows?
Well, Al-Anon is a free service, just like Alcoholics Anonymous is family. And my mother benefited a great deal once our dad went to AA and got serious about it. She found a lot of support and a lot of help with Al-Anon. I personally had some personal counseling, which I found I needed to grow, get it done, move on. And so that's more or less the approach that I took. But some people need to do this for the rest of their lives. And so our mom was kind of one of those. She needed a lot more than I did. So yeah, I think family definitely, especially if they're in a chronic situation where the alcohol or drug abuse is going on, if they can get some counseling, some coping skills during that process, that would be tremendous. And it might help break that cycle of alcoholism if they could get some counseling.
Sure. Another question, what advice would you give to someone who has a family member that just admitted to alcoholism and they've started the process to get better? How can I help them succeed?
Lindsay probably has a better solution
Sure.
on this than I do, but I'll tell you what I would do. I would get a really good sponsor, and I'd hope I didn't know that sponsor, and I'd be there to be as supportive as I could, but I would send them to somebody else, and I wouldn't, as a family member, try to be the counselor or that sponsor, because I'm sick too
She'll
now.
kill you.
Yeah, I'd probably, yeah.
Police will just shoot you. And I worship the ground you walk on.
If that was true, I would have shot him several times.
I'd be damn scared for her to be my fault. We'll go that way with Lisa.
So Lindsay, continuing with that question in the previous one, do you have something that you could add?
Yeah, I think that the family is actually key when it comes to treating substance use disorder, because they have a lot more leverage than me. My leverage is, well, I can, tell you to go back to treatment and I can kick you out of my treatment program, and that's about it. And those are probably, you're going to tell me to kick rocks either way. So we work really heavily with the families, and that's a testament to, I don't know if anybody knows Ken Seeley and Eric Seeley. They are on the show Intervention. They're who taught me my intervention skills, and they are amazing. And it's all about working with the families from the get-go and keeping up with the families through case management long-term. we've actually hired somebody out of state from an amazing treatment center called Pine Grove who's going to come flesh out our family program. So the families have their own program, but it's insane how much, I mean, it is a family disease. And typically when I've been experiencing interventions, the codependent is the person you want to lead the experience because they're the ones that usually give in. So them showing that strength in that intervention is usually a big wake up call to the addict. And I mean, of course, there's like on-site and the Bridge, which are both facilities that treat codependency. And then we also treat the children. So, I mean, I had a couple of kids recently who found their father overdosed in the bathroom. So we're working on trauma and understanding what it means to build a supportive household. Because most people don't know that you can use the keyboard cleaners for whippets, and you can get drunk on vanilla extract. Or I had an uncle that drank rubbing alcohol and ended up ultimately dying. And I have more friends than I can count on my hands that have drank hand sanitizer while they were in treatment. Because the treatment center wasn't buying alcohol free and they just want to get turned. So, you know, the family is, that's where it's at. I think that's my
Sure. And
biggest
family counseled as well. We appreciate it. Rex, many of us have heard someone say, well, I just drink beer and wine. I'm fine. I'm not going to be an alcoholic just drinking beer and wine. What do you say to that statement?
That's wrong. That's just, I drink anything in my head. If I got the wine, I went.
But I think she's talking about like somebody that says, oh, I just drink beer, so I can't be an alcoholic.
Well, I've got an employee today that I'm not going to say anything about. Her. This is kind of an anonymous deal, but I've got an employee. That's one of my best friends I met 24 years ago. We put in that program, and it was his sponsor. And he's back. He's under my employment today. He's probably the best friend I have. And he drinks. He's one of those that can't. You know, he's the star guy. And he came to me probably 2 months ago. He was the OG that had $1,000 a day job. He's lost that. He's working for me and my company today. And he's got cattle down there, bases, and he's just fabulous from one end to the other. And he can drink beer. He's hell, I don't know the alcoholic. I called him one time and was his sponsor for years. And he went back out and drank beer and does it in front of me. He goes home, right to the house, breaks his pasture. But now
We have customers, we own a convenience store, and we have customers come in every day
7 o'clock.
at 7, they start at 7 o'clock drinking beer in the morning, but they come in at 5:30 in the afternoon and they buy a 12-pack of beer every day. And so someone said, something about that. And so what if you ate 12 pounds of potatoes every day? How healthy would you be if you ate 12 pounds of potatoes every day at 5:30? I know that's just beer and I know that's just potatoes, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a problem and that you can live a healthy life drinking a 12-pack every day at 5:30.
Sure.
So just because it's fun doesn't mean that it's not a physical, that it's not manifesting into it.
Sure. So just any form of alcohol can cause the abuse. Lindsay, I have a question for you as far as I know we touched base on relapse a little bit. How common is relapse, and does a person need to change friends, social settings, and various things in their life to actually be able to quit successfully?
I think relapse is a part of recovery. I mean, I don't have a single friend or patient that got sober their very first time and continued without using again. It's just part of it. And I do Smart Recovery. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a support group. It's free. I do it for adults, and then I have a group for kids 11 to 17 that I do too. We're one of the only adolescent substance use support groups in the area. But I mean, in their relapse, we actually we do a relapse autopsy, and we use it as a tool to see, okay, the 2 weeks leading up to the relapse, what happened, what can we identify in there that's a common factor, and how can we use that to identify triggers and things moving forward so that we can develop coping skills. And I don't think you have to change everything about your life. I think you just have to be able to figure out how to set boundaries and how to identify what's healthy and not healthy, which is hard to do. And I think that takes having a really strong support system that's willing to be honest with you. Because it's about a lot of accountability. I mean, I have friends that are shopping addicts. They submit their bank statements to their friends at the end of the month and stuff. It's about having people to be there, to watch what you're doing and help you make better decisions. Because addicts, I mean, it's not. They don't always make the best decisions. They don't usually make the best decisions.
Sure. And continuing that, I know we touched base on COVID. What are the effects of COVID on alcoholics, abuse, counseling, getting this help that they need? We touched on that a little bit. Could you expand a little more?
Oh, it's been terrible. It has been so devastating. I personally have had 5 deaths of friends who had strong recovery who overdosed in the area. We're not able to get to face-to-face support groups. And the thing is that when you're attending treatment over Zoom, I could be drinking straight vodka right now and you wouldn't know the difference. It's so a lot of the treatment facilities have gone to doing only video treatment. They can't do consistent drug testing. And so people are relapsing. Like I said, I had a friend die yesterday of overdose. And it was somebody who had years of really strong sobriety, worked in the recovery industry, was a sponsor to many people. And it just, when it happens, it happens. And it only takes once to die, So COVID has been devastating. I mean, it's, there's been, I think it's like 1,000% increase in emotional distress reported to emergency hotlines, 1,000% increase. And suicide skyrocketing too. And most suicides are done while high or drunk. So it's just not good.
Sure. And it seems like when you go on social media, there's a lot of memes, a lot of things that are encouraging. Well, we're at home. Let's just drink wine while we're here, and that doesn't help the situation either. We're going to wrap up with one question before we move on to our resources. Dr. Bellows, what advice would you give to students who might be going through similar experiences as yourselves, and through coronavirus and through many of the things that we've talked about? What advice could you give students who may be going through some of these same things, some of our students, or students in general?
First of all, if they have a problem themselves, or if they have a family member, to find someone that they can talk to that'll help guide them to some help, to find the resources that are available, to find someone that you're not like close friends to, or a close family relationship that you can talk to. So a professor or a counselor or someone at the college that will listen. The most important thing I think you can find is somebody who will actually listen to you, because if you can articulate what's going on, you may be able to solve your own problem if you can just articulate it. And so if they can find a person that will listen and utilize some of our services available through our offices, I think that would be the first step. So
yes, awesome. Well, thank you. Well, what I want to do is kind of continue with that. I'm going to share my screen and let you know that. Let me share my screen very quickly. We'll share screen 2. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now, and we have an awareness page for NCTC. You can get to it by going to awareness.nctc.edu, and Also, a quick way to find it too is just go to our homepage, www.nctc.edu. In the search bar, you can click awareness and you can get to this page from here. If you'll notice on our awareness page, we have lots of different information and resources. May was Mental Health Month. We have an entire segment here on this page for mental health. April was Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We have videos, we have information, we have resources that are available, lots of different avenues that you can go down. If I click specifically tonight on the alcohol suicide prevention, this is our homepage where what we've discussed tonight, you can find your help. If I scroll on down, the importance of Alcohol Awareness Month that Dr. Del Rio touched upon, here it is again. Why is this important that we're giving this information out to our students? If you scroll on down the awareness page, you'll also find the different resources in the different counties. We have Alcohol Anonymous links, the National Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Information Center, information resources. We have hotlines. We have suggestions for professional help. We even have information on there for mutual support groups and groups for family and friends. This video will be on our awareness page, and we'll continue to add to these pages and change information. If you have any suggestions or things that we may have missed or that you would like to share, then please call NCTC. If there's a resource not on here, you're just not sure what to do, you can email counseling@nctc.edu and we will put you in the right place of getting that information. Does anyone have a resource in particular that you would like to share with us this evening that maybe wasn't mentioned? Lindsay, can you think of anything that you really would like these students to have?
Yeah, I actually, so the NCTC students, I don't know if they're aware, but they can participate in, I'm pretty sure the collegiate recovery program from UNT, because each university adopts the local community college. So if, they're actually currently having their own meetings, like support meetings at the collegiate recovery program there, and it's pretty cool. Like they have like a little video game set up, and you can go meet other young people. They also have a young people's night at Show Me, which is on University. It's a 12-step meeting, but they have a young people's night, and afterwards you can go get dinner, and Smart Recovery and Dharma Recovery are other options. So if you've had, some people have had traumatizing incidents and they're not wanting to do 12 steps, Smart Recovery is another option. There's a meeting Thursday night and Saturday in Louisville, which is the closest one. And then Dharma Recovery is a Buddhist-based approach. And so those are, I have a ton of resources, but those are a couple.
Can I add an NCTC one? I put it in the comments, but just wanted to remind everybody that coming off of what Dr. Bello said, if you do need someone to talk to and you can't, you don't have that person in your life that you can talk to about this kind of stuff, our CARES team,
Yes.
you can talk to them, and their phone numbers and emails, whatever you're comfortable with, is on our website at cares.nctc.edu. That's CARES.
Yes. The main thing is to reach out to us. Let us help you. If you need that help, that's what we're here for. And we'll put you in touch with lots of different resources. As we end this evening, again, thank you so much for joining and for sharing your stories, your testimonies. Is there anything that you feel that's important that we might want to add before we close this evening? Is there something that wasn't discussed that we could talk about before we end? Does anyone have any final thoughts?
I'd just like to say that if one way that I really have helped some of my younger people identify if there was a problem is I had them make a list of the 5 most important things in their life. First of all, if drugs or alcohol is on that list, that's a problem. already, so go ahead and get help. You don't do the rest of the exercise, just go get help. But if alcohol or drugs has negatively impacted any of those 5 things, or probably all of those 5 things, then that's a good indicator that you should at least go get a screening. And so my place is Grace Counseling Center. We have one in Louisville and one in Fort Worth, and we do all of our screenings free. So if you come in and you get a screening, there's no charge, and we'll let you know if there's any indication that you might have a substance use problem, and then we can help you find the appropriate level of care, because it might not be ours, but we can help you find something. So if your top 5 most important things are affected, that's probably a pretty good indicator that, it's an issue.
Dr. Bellows, Rex, Sabrina, would you like to finish by adding anything?
I just think that it's really important. If someone comes to you, introduce them to Alcoholics Anonymous. I just cannot say how much the program, the steps, having a really good sponsor that's there when you need them, not daytime, nighttime, anytime. I know
We've been blessed.
we have been blessed, even though there's not any meetings, we have each other and we talk AA all the time. To our friends that are in the program, we talk to them all the time. It's just, to me, it made all the difference in the world. That this program, these steps, because you can apply them in your life in any situation.
Yes. And again, those can be found on our awareness page. And I also think that, a person who might encounter someone that's trying to reach out to you, it's very important that you listen, that you give them time to speak. You listen to what they're trying to tell you, try to recognize what it is they're trying to tell you, and try to lead them in a direction that you could get them the help. Any more final thoughts? No? Okay. Well, did you feel like this was informative? Good things happening and good information? Awesome. Well, again, we thank you very much. And please encourage people to come on, look at our wellness page, our awareness page, rewatch this video, reach out if you need that help. And we thank you all for joining us, and we wish you a very good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.